It's just past 10 years since I started working as a storyteller. And when I started off, I only really had one story. Since then I've learned a few more. But that first story is still one of my favourites. So I've come to the place where the original version of that story is supposed to have happened. So I can share it with you all on location. Hundreds of years ago, in this part of North Wales, there lived a prince called Llewellyn. He loved to go hunting, and every time he went out into the forest to hunt, he would go with his hound, Beddgelert. You couldn't ask for a more faithful hound than Beddgelert. And Llewellyn loved him so much that he even let him sleep at the bottom of his bed, even though he was a shaggy, smelly, hairy beast. After years and years of trying, Llewellyn and his wife finally had a baby boy. And on the day that baby was born, I'm afraid to say, Beddgelert was demoted to the stables. Llewellyn didn't really think he should trust a wolfhound with a baby, even Beddgelert. Now one day, several months after the baby had been born, Llewellyn decided to go hunting. He went down to the stables, he got his horse, and he called out for Beddgelert. And he expected the slobbery dog to come bounding up to him, like he always did. But Beddgelert was nowhere to be seen. So Llewellyn went off into the forest on his own. It was a soggy day, a little bit like today, which I suppose isn't surprising for this part of the world. But it didn't take Llewellyn long to find in a clearing a magnificent stag, and the chase was on. They ran for mile and mile and mile until they got to a raging river full of flood water. And the stag, with its long legs, managed an extraordinary leap all the way to the far bank. Llewellyn's horse refused to follow, and so the hunt was over. It took Llewellyn hours to get home, but when he finally got there, he was greeted by Beddgelert, who came bounding right up to him, slobbering everywhere, and he put his paws up onto his shoulders. So Llewellyn pushed him down and said, "Where have you been, boy?" And that is when he realised that Beddgelert's mouth was stained red with blood, and a terrible thought crossed his mind. He rushed indoors, went up to the nursery, and the scene that met him there was one of absolute carnage. The cot was turned onto its side, and the baby's blankets were covered in blood. So Llewellyn got out his sword, and he grabbed Beddgelert by the scruff of his neck, and he said, "You monster, you've killed my son." And he took that sword and plunged it deep into Beddgelert's heart. And with little more than a whimper, Beddgelert sank to the ground and breathed his last. Just a few moments after that, the silence of the nursery was broken by another soft whimper over by the cot. So Llewellyn dropped the sword. He went over to the blankets and he lifted them up, and there he found his baby boy without a single scratch on him. And beyond that, there was the torn, dead body of a huge wolf. Beddgelert had sensed this wolf in the morning, and so that is why he had stayed behind to guard the nursery, protect the baby, and kill the wolf on his own. And Beddgelert was buried in a spot just outside a village which was named in his honour, Beddgelert, the grave of Beddgelert. And here is the grave. A reminder that if you act when you're at your most angry, it is very easy to make a terrible mistake. So now I think I'm going to go into Beddgelert, find a pub, dry off a little bit, and have a pint in honour of Beddgelert, the faithful hound.